Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we've got another news and rumor video to discuss. In today's video, looking at some signings from our past couple of days, some news updates, and we've got some trade rumors involving the Leafs, the Penguins, the Senators, and the San Jose Sharks. We'll go to all the updates regarding those few teams coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we get into this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this with all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And don't forget to stay tuned for more videos coming out in the very near future. So as usual, another news and review here today. So we're going to have a video coming out in the next couple of days, probably Thursday or Friday, talking about some very interesting trades that went down over the past week and a couple of big signings in an Alberta organization, but we're not going to get to that here today. It will make this video too long, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to have a video coming out regarding those things coming out in the very near future. But in today's video, we got another news and rumor review here to discuss. So we're going to start off as usual by looking at a couple of signings from our past couple of days. So there are three signings here I want to talk about. One happened late in August, two happened early in September. So one that happened back late in August was with the Carolina Hurricanes, as they have signed 2025 second round pick Ivan Ryabkin, who's a center prospect, to a 3-year ELC AAV of $920,000. There's not much to talk about here. Ryabkin was just drafted by the Carolina Hurricanes. He played last year, split time from the USHL and over in Russia with the MHL, put up 12 points in 15 MHL games, also had 30 points, including 19 goals and 27 USHL games. So he looks like a pretty good player. Will probably need a couple of years of development time in the minors before he's able to come over. But I do think Ryabkin's going to be a really solid pickup here for the Hurricanes. I think long-term has the potential to be a solid third, maybe second-line center for the Hurricanes. So a very good pickup here for Carolina, as they sent one of their 2025 draft picks to a new contract, so very interesting note there. Another sign that was made recently was with the New York Islanders. Another guy who was taken in the 2025 draft, second round, 42nd overall, Daniel Prokhorov, who's a left winger, another 18-year-old player, gets a 3-year ELC AAV of $915,000. So very interesting note there. Prokhorov was once again another second round pick in the 2025 draft, this one of the New York Islanders. He also played last year in the MHL, putting up 20 goals, 27 points in 43 games. I think long term has the potential to be a solid top 9 forward for the Islanders. We'll probably need a couple of years of development time, but I do think in the future Prokhorov could be a really solid top 9 forward. So a solid pickup here from the Islanders as they get Daniel Prokhorov signed at a 3-year ELC. And then the last one was with an RFA, as RFA goaltending prospect Dennis Hildeby with the Toronto Maple Leafs, the 24-year-old, wound up getting a 3-year contract extension with an AAV of $840,000. So it's a pretty good pickup there for the Maple Leafs. Hildeby last year played in 6 games at the NHL level, putting up a 3.33 GAA, 878 save percentage, and he also had 908 save percentage and a 2.55 GAA in 30 AHL games. So he's probably going to be a third stringer this upcoming season. They let go of Matt Murray in free agency. They still have Stolarz and Woll, so there's a very likely chance that Hildeby's going to be a third stringer for this upcoming season. I think 3 years at under $1 million, given the fact Hildeby in a year or two could potentially be a backup, is a steal for the Maple Leafs, and I love this deal for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So very interesting note there. But Prokhorov and Ryabkin, 2 second-round picks in this past year's draft, have signed 3-year ELCs with the Islanders and Canes respectively, while RFA Dennis Hildeby's got a 3-year extension to remain in Toronto and be their team's current third stringer. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to a couple of news updates. So we've got a few news updates from our past couple of days they haven't touched on yet. So we're going to start off with some PTO updates. So first, Minnesota has signed Brett Liaison to a PTO. New Jersey has signed Kevin Rooney, Adam Schell, Gregory Romanov, and Luke Glendening to PTOs. And Carolina has signed Kevin LeBanc to a PTO. So a lot of very interesting PTOs that have been handed out. Liaison has been a really solid bottom 6 forward in Anaheim over the past couple of years, wasn't qualified, so he's going to have a shot with the Minnesota Wild in training camp. The Devils signed Rooney and Glendening, who have in the past been solid 4th-line forwards, maybe more towards the AHL level player they are at this point in time. But still, those are really good depth pieces that could really help the Devils if they do get contracts. Schell and Romanov could challenge for like 3rd or 4th string roles on the Devils goaltending side. And then LeBanc could be a really solid, still like bottom 6 forward if he got a contract with Carolina. That could be a really good fit if he was able to get a contract. So very interesting note there. Once again, these are just guys who are going to training camp on PTOs. But LeBanc's gone on PTO in Carolina, Liaison in Minnesota, and 4 players who got PTOs from New Jersey. jersey, so very interesting note there. Next, going over to longtime NHL forward Derek Ryan. Ryan, who for a long period of time was an AHL, NHL player, guy who flip-flopped throughout the NHL and AHL, has officially retired. So very interesting note there. His contract was up. Edmonton didn't bring him back. He wasn't able to get a contract offer from any other NHL team, so he decided to call it quits. He winds up finishing his career with 82 goals, 127 assists, 209 points in 606 NHL games. So he wasn't a consistent everyday NHL defenseman. There were plenty of times when he was a healthy scratch or he played in the AHL, especially towards the past couple of seasons when Edmonton started to get a little bit better with their depth. But still, he played over 600 games as like a really solid bottom six forward, and I think made a pretty good career for himself. So very interesting note there. But Derek Ryan, longtime player, played the last couple of seasons in Edmonton, has officially retired and will no longer be playing in the NHL. So very interesting note there. Going over to a signing that was made in the AHL, Hreschuk, who we talked about a little while ago, did not get an offer from the Columbus Blue Jackets. He was a draft pick of theirs, and he wound up leaving in free agency. He's apparently signed an AHL deal with the Texas Stars, Dallas's AHL affiliate. So obviously, it's no guarantees that he'll be able to make the NHL. He'll have to prove himself at the AHL first, but at least he was able to secure himself an AHL level deal, and we'll see where he goes from there. But Hreschuk, who was a prospect whose rights expired on August, has officially signed an AHL deal in Texas, so very interesting note there. Next, going over to Evgeny Kuznetsov. Kuznetsov, who spent the past year in the KHL, recently I think has contract terminated or walked away from his KHL contract, is looking for an NHL return, and apparently there are two teams currently in the running, according to recent reports, to sign Evgeny Kuznetsov. Now, Kuznetsov's a really solid guy. At this point in time, not the player he once was, which was a top six forward with the Washington Capitals. He's more of like a third line center at this point. So very interesting note there. It doesn't seem like he'll get a league minimum deal. It'll probably be between the $1 and $2 million mark if he was to get signed by an NHL level team, but it does seem like some teams have some interest in bringing Kuznetsov. I could see these teams be ones who need some center help, like a Canucks or Canadians or Hurricanes or someone like that. So we shall wait and see on that, but apparently according to some recent reports, there are two teams currently in the running to sign Evgeny Kuznetsov. So very interesting note there. And lastly, Klim Kostin, who's currently a UFA, was a RFA with the San Jose Sharks, was not qualified, hit free agency status, has still currently not been signed to an NHL level deal, wants to go back to Edmonton. Klim Kostin had a couple of seasons over in Edmonton a few years back. He started his career out in St. Louis, the team who drafted him. Then he was straight to Edmonton. Then he was straight to Detroit. Then he was straight to San Jose. Now he's, of course, a UFA. So the former first-round pick in the 2017 draft still wants to go back to Edmonton. Now, Edmonton doesn't have very much cap space. Kostin can still be a very productive bottom six forward, so I could see the Edmonton Oilers having some good use for a guy like Klim Kostin, but he'll probably have to go to camp on like a PTO or sign like a league minimum deal if he was to go there. So we'll have to wait and see. No guarantees that Kostin and Edmonton are talking about signing some sort of a contract, but it does seem like Kostin does have a preference to go back to Edmonton, where he spent a couple of seasons in his career. So very interesting note there. So those are all the news updates from our past couple of days, as Kostin apparently wants to sign back with the Edmonton Oilers. Two teams are in the running to sign Evgeny Kuznetsov. Hreschuk has signed it with the AHL Stars. Derek Ryan has retired after a long and illustrious career. And then the Canes will sign LeBanc, Wild will sign Liaison, and Devils will sign 4 players to PTO. So very interesting note there. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors. So when it comes to some trade rumors, we've got a couple of things to talk about here. First, with the San Jose Sharks. According to David Pagnotta, he says recently that the San Jose Sharks are going to be expected to move Mario Ferraro at around the trade deadline. So don't expect Mario Ferraro to get moved anytime before training camp. It seems like he will be going into the start of the season with the San Jose Sharks, which makes some sense because the Sharks do still have some holes in their blue line, and I think Ferraro could be a solid top 4 defensive-minded defenseman going into the season, could really help some of the younger guys grow. He's entering the final year of his deal. He's got $3.25 million cap hit. The Sharks, I think, now have a retention slot available now that the Burns contract expired, so if they were wanting to, they could retain someone in Ferraro. Like, Ferraro's a top 4 left shot defenseman who's a defensive-minded guy. Any team who's trying to make the playoffs next year is going to have some major interest. Ferraro's mentioned in the past couple of trade deadlines, but with him still having term, the Sharks weren't really pressed to try and move him. I think this year they will try and move him at the trade deadline. I think they could get a really solid return of like a first-round pick or maybe a second-round pick and a good prospect, something like that. Like, I'm not exactly sure what the entire trade package would be, but I do think Ferraro would be a really solid add for any team who's trying to go to playoffs to add top 4 left shot defensive defenseman. So once again, don't expect him to be moved in the near future. The Sharks will probably go into the season with Ferraro still there, but maybe closer to the trade deadline, do expect Ferraro to maybe get moved by San Jose Sharks, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But keep your your eye on Mario Ferraro when we get into the new year and closer to the trade deadline as potentially being moved. Next, going over to Bruce Garrioch, he mentioned recently that the Sens could be looking to move young defenseman Max Guenette. Now, Guenette last year got a couple of stints at NHL level, was mostly an AHL level guy, has been over the past couple of years, had some promise in the Senators organization to potentially be a third pair defenseman in their system, but he's been surpassed by so many players on their depth charts. Like, they just got Jordan Spence, Chuck and Hensler are probably above him in the depth charts. There's a couple of other guys, like you still got Klevin above him, Martin Paolo above him. Like, they have a ton of defensive depth and a lot of guys who could challenge for intro roster spots as early as this year. So with that in mind, that has led Bruce Garrioch to mention that the Sens could be looking to try and move Max Guenette at some point during training camp. So that makes sense. Like, I think he's also waivers eligible, so I think for teams who could definitely use some more young defensive depth, they would try and claim him off of waivers. So maybe moving him is a smart move there for Ottawa. I think they could get like maybe a low-end draft pick or like maybe another young player in exchange for Guenette. I think it's a possibility. Not sure exactly what the trade package could look like, but with the depth on the blue line the Senators have right now, it doesn't really make sense to keep Guenette and potentially risk placing him on waivers and losing him for nothing. So keep your eye on Max Guenette, especially over the next couple of weeks as we enter training camp, as there's a very likely chance Guenette could get moved by the Ottawa Senators. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. Next, going over to the Toronto Maple Leafs, according to James Myrtle, he was talking about the Leafs, and he wonders that the Maple Leafs could trade a defensive defenseman for a puck-moving one. Now, he says that this team is a really solid defensive team. Like, they have a lot of really solid defensive players. They have Tanev, they have Carlo, they have Riley, they have Oliver Ekman-Larsson, they just got Henry Thrun. Like, they have a lot of really solid defensemen on that team. But he says they have a lot of more defensive-minded defensemen. Like, Tanev's a defensive-minded defenseman. OEL, to some extent, is more of a defensive-minded defenseman. Carlo's a defensive-minded defenseman. So he says because they have a lot of more defensive-minded caliber defensemen, he wonders if they can maybe try and flip one of those defensive-minded defensemen for more of a puck-moving one. Now, I'm not exactly sure who they could try and go after. Maybe they go after a guy like Erik Karlsson, Rasmus Andersson. Not exactly sure. There was some mention earlier in the season that they would be interested in moving Brendan Carlo for the right price. Could they try and move him to try and get like a top 4 puck-moving defenseman? Like, I'm not exactly sure, but it does seem the Leafs are open to trying to make some sort of a defensive move to try and get some more puck-moving defensemen on that blue line. So we shall wait and see on that. Once again, no linkage to any sort of specific defenseman, but I do wonder if they could have some major interest in some of the bigger fish out there on the trade market. So we shall wait and see on that. But keep an eye on the Toronto Maple Leafs. They might be willing to make some sort of a deal when it comes to moving a defensive defenseman for a puck-moving one, someone who can maybe contribute a little bit more offensively. We will have to wait and see on that. And lastly here, going over to the Pittsburgh Penguins. According to David Pagnotta on a recent, I think it was radio hit or one of his articles, he mentioned that going into training camp, the team to watch out for potential moves leading up to the start of the season, potentially moves in training camp, is the Pittsburgh Penguins still. He says that they have a ton of players on the block that they'd be open to consider moving. He says on the forward group, Brian Rust, Rickard Rakell, and Noel Acciari are all guys that the Penguins could have on the table, potentially open to moving. Like, we talked about Rust and Rakell over the past couple of weeks, couple of months, since the start of the offseason. Both those guys are really solid top 6 forwards who could put between 60 and 70 points, potentially hit the 30 goal mark. They're signed to just over $5 million cap hits for I think like 2 or 3 more seasons. They would be fantastic gets for any team looking for top 6 help and who doesn't have an abundance of cap space. Acciari is a really solid bottom 6 forward. He can play center, he can play left wing. I think he's got 1 season left on his contract, just over a $2 million AAV. So I think he could be another solid bottom 6 addition for teams. Pagnotta also mentions on the defensive end Erik Karlsson and Ryan Graves as potential trade chips, as well as Tristan Jarry on the goaltending side. Now, I'm not sure which teams would trade for Jarry at this point because his cap hit is not really becoming of what his play has been over the past couple of years. And on top of that, Ryan Graves really fell out last year towards the end of the season. Like, he did not look overly good. So unless they're attaching sweeteners, I don't think Graves and Jarry are getting dealt right now. But if the deal came along, the Penguins seem to be open to moving either one of them. He also mentioned Erik Karlsson, another guy who we've heard over the past couple of months. He says that according to his sources, Dubas is willing to retain a portion of Karlsson's contract, although it's not confirmed if he will be willing to retain up to 50% of it. And on top of that, he does say that they'd be open to moving Erik Karlsson. So at this current point in time, it seems like Karlsson is maybe not the best of trade chips for him. Maybe Rickard Rakell and Ryan Rust are. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But like, there's a long list of players this Penguins team seems to be open to moving if it got them the right price. So once again, we'll have to wait and see. No guarantees by any means that the Penguins make any moves during training camp. But they have so many good players, and they're trying to be a team who maybe goes in the McKenna sweepstakes, that that there's a very likely chance we could see one or two potentially even blockbuster trades from the Pittsburgh Penguins this offseason. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But that's all I'm talking for today. I left you guys thoughts. Do you believe that the Pittsburgh Penguins are poised to make some moves during training camp this year? Do you think that the Toronto Maple Leafs could make a defensive swap with some other team to try and get an offensive-minded defenseman? Do you think that Ottawa will move Max Guenette? And do you think that San Jose will move Mario Ferraro closer to the trade deadline? Definitely your thoughts on all of that, plus all the news updates and the signs from our past couple of days. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Or until this video, if you'd like to subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for more videos coming in the very near future. I also have a blog to news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link to that in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.